As Christmas approaches, a time to associate with warmth, stability, and family, it's sobering to reflect on the 354,000 individuals in England experiencing homelessness, including 159,000 children in temporary accommodation. These aren't just statistics, they represent lives disrupted, families fractured, futures jeopardised. And homelessness in the UK has soared to record levels, exacerbated by rising living costs, a broken housing market, inadequate social support systems. So Labour's pledge of nearly £1 billion to address this crisis represents a potentially transformative shift in how we might approach homelessness, but it is still a sort of sticking plaster to a gaping wound. The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, has highlighted prevention as a cornerstone of this strategy, a long overdue recognition that patchwork solutions and sticking plasters are insufficient to break the cycle. But I'm afraid £1 billion is no more than a sticking plaster. But at least she recognises the inadequacy of the government gesture. The announcement includes a £633 million homelessness prevention grant, £185.6 million for rough sleeping recovery, £37 million to support individuals transitioning into long-term accommodation. But all of this presumes that people can get into the system. Targeted initiatives such as the £1 million Changing Futures programme aim to address the intersection of homelessness with mental health issues, substance misuse and domestic abuse. You only have to walk down Tottenham Court Road in an evening to see the numbers of homeless people on the pavement. And I don't think £1 billion gesture is sufficient, but I am reassured that Angela Rayner recognises that gestures are not enough. So the heart is in the right place, even if the fumbling in the pocket is a little inadequate. £5 million will fund pilots for 20 councils to reduce reliance on unsuitable temporary accommodation like B&Bs. But again, that isn't sufficient. And while the government continues to use hotels and B&Bs as a limbo for vulnerable individuals who are seeking asylum, the message which is sent out is absurd. It's not a joined-up system. The inadequacies of the current system cannot be overstated. Temporary accommodation often becomes a trap rather than a lifeline, and people who are, for example, in the asylum accommodation find themselves very quickly in a homeless situation. And yet councils are paying £2.3 billion a year. In some cases, families remain in cramped, unsafe conditions for years and years and years. And meanwhile, funding for homelessness services stagnates, with a 30% drop in accommodation services, 18% fall in available bed spaces during the past decade. And rising costs and inflation threaten to shutter even more services. So, as far as sticking plasters go, there's a box of sticking plasters, and it's great that there's something there, but it's not enough. Councillor Adam Hugg aptly describes homelessness as both a humanitarian crisis and an economic one. It's in council's interest, morally and fiscally, to prevent homelessness rather than scrambling to manage the consequences. And Lord John Bird of the Big Issue has long championed prevention, famously storming out of a housing committee last month to underscore its importance. His words resonate. Homelessness is at record levels. The only way to stop these numbers from rising is to concentrate efforts on reducing extreme poverty. And similarly, Crisis CEO Matt Downey emphasised the devastating personal toll of homelessness, from shattered health to lost opportunities. While applauding Labour's initiative, both he and Bird demand more funding. They call for modern systemic thinking to tackle entrenched issues. Labour's investment is a necessary first step, but it's not a panacea. Without comprehensive reform in housing policy, welfare support, economic inequality, prevention efforts risk being overwhelmed, and the housing market itself is a driver of homelessness with insufficient affordable housing supply and skyrocketing rents. And Labour's commitment to building 1.5 million homes is ambitious but essential, and I think in the end flawed. As we've seen, there aren't enough builders to actually do the work. The broader policy landscape also plays a role, and local housing allowances remain frozen. Welfare systems often fail to meet basic needs, and support for those leaving institutions like prison or care is utterly inadequate. A homelessness prevention strategy must coordinate across all these intersecting issues, or it risks treating symptoms, not causes. This Christmas, as people decorate trees and gather with loved ones, it is worth asking, what kind of society do we want to be? Homelessness is not inevitable. It's a result of policy choices and failures in the system. The £1 billion investment offers some hope, but hope must translate into real action. Councils, third sector organisations, businesses must collaborate to deliver innovative, lasting solutions, not more rhetoric. And Angela Rayner's promise to turn the tide may be a bold one. It's up to all of us, though, voters, advocates, policymakers, to hold the government accountable and ensure that no one, especially a child, faces Christmas without secure hope, without a secure place, without a home. Homelessness may be a crisis, but it's one that we have the power to end. And this year, we shouldn't just think of this as a charity. We should think of this as a commitment to change.